My name is Chip Hanna, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. Welcome again to the For You Leaders podcast. We are continuing my journey into understanding more about one of the most important leadership roles, being a father. Now today I'm talking about a controversial topic, discipline with kids. If you remember from last time, my wife and I are expecting a little boy here in the beginning of August. While Kirk is on vacation focusing on his family, I'm using this as a chance to learn how to be a better dad from the different dads in my life. I'm talking to my dad, my father-in-law, a longtime friend and new dad, Aaron, and of course, Kirk, who has 3 daughters. Listen to the last episode for a quick primer. As I mentioned, today we're talking about discipline. Curious about how I was raised? How did the dads in my life view discipline? Their answers may surprise you. Let's start with Aaron Mares, a longtime friend of mine. He has a 14-month-old boy. He doesn't have a lot of discipline experience, but he gives me a quick idea of what to expect in the very near future.
Your own child's cry does something different in you. Like, it hits nerves that I don't think I ever thought I'd have. To where it's like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what is triggering in me that's causing this child to... And that's when we're alone at home. When it's public, it's almost like, you know, with my wife, it's like, please get him quiet. Put a passive, do whatever you have to do to get him quiet. And there's this social expectation like, okay, anyone who has kids gets it. Anyone who doesn't, you can't expect them to understand. We want to show... Sometimes we want to show them more that we're trying to pacify and soothe the child than we're actually trying to soothe the child, because we don't want to disturb them, or we're afraid of what they might think or what they might begin to assume about your parenting skills or what have you. And so it's kind of a mix. It's kind of all of those things of just trying to, okay, he's crying. We get it. Let's do our best to try to figure out why he's crying and fix it. And if not, you've got to get to the point like, okay, he's a kid. Kids cry. We're just going to have to go through this, get through it.
Infants are one thing, but as your kid grows, that's a whole nother thing. The days of an infant seem like a long time ago for my dad, but he had a pretty specific parenting technique that worked pretty well on me, or at least I think it did.
Parenting with love and logic. It's rather than saying, go to your room because you've been doing bad. Do you want to go to your room, or would you like to go pull some weeds out in the garden? You know, giving them a choice rather than an ultimatum on different things. And it's also avoiding like the helicopter parents that are always hovering over, ready to rescue them from anything that goes wrong. Like, you know, oh, don't forget to bring your hat, your coat, because you might get cold. Maybe letting them go without their coat and hat and getting cold and you know, it's not going to kill them. Well, if it was, we wouldn't let you do that.
As a young kid, I actually remember some of the examples that my dad referenced. My parents weren't the only ones that thought love and logic worked. My father-in-law, Jerome, also used love and logic with his kids, Jessica and Joel.
We did a parenting program called Parenting with Love and Logic. Yeah, it's a great program. It really is. There's some strengths and weaknesses of it. The strength is it really is about honesty. It really is about putting kids' behavior in, you know, they're responsible for their behavior. One of the central premises, though, is flawed. That central premise is you allow your kid to experience the consequences of their actions, which I totally agree with that. The problem is no one else wants to give them those consequences either. So when you talk about, I'll give you an example. When Joel was in high school, he had his first cell phone, little flip phone, and he was a texting madman. And I forget the exact numbers, but he sent something like 140 text messages one day while he was at school. And he could do it while he was in his pocket. He could text while he was, you know, had it like in his hoodie pocket or something without even looking at the phone. His teacher, I think it was a math teacher, caught him texting in class, and that was a stated rule of the class, and she took his phone away from him. And I came in at the end of the day. I think she had called me. I came in at the end of the day, and she gave me the phone and said, I caught Joel texting in class. I said, you know, and that's against the rules, and I took his phone away from him. And that was really the only consequence, was that he got his phone taken away for a couple hours, and she called me. So I said, I would be glad for you to keep that phone for the rest of the semester and teach him a lesson, because if he violated your rule, I think he needs to learn from that. And it was maybe a month or something like that. And I said, I support you. I support what you're trying to do. I totally get it. And I support whatever discipline you want to give. And she says, oh, no, I can't do that. I need to just give you the phone. And she was, really reluctant to do that and almost afraid to do that and almost apologetic that she had called me in to talk to me about it. So kind of the downside to that love and logic parenting is other people have to be willing to do consequences with your kids besides just calling you. So it takes more than just that one person. It's just like the cops. Okay, I've been a cop for 33 years. What do we do if we catch a kid screwing up? We call their parents. We say, hey, parents, you need to deal with this kid. Well, so if you're in love and logic kind of mindset, the parents are saying, hey, you need to go lock him up, give him some hard labor for a couple hours or something, which doesn't really exist. So that's kind of the downside. But anyway, I really like the way that program taught communication with your kids. And really, it is just a kind of a mature, hey, here's what's going to happen if you don't do X, and let them make those kind of choices.
Kirk, who has 3 daughters, explained it's more than just having a good relationship with your kids. They have to know what to expect from you.
His parents, we want our kids to like us. We want to have a good bond, a good friendship with them. And sometimes the first thing that gets dismissed in that is discipline. And so I think first and foremost, in order to have discipline, you've got to have family values. You've got to have a direction in which you're leading your family. And you don't need 50 values, you need a couple. And they've got to be non-negotiable. And they've got to be taught and caught, as the saying goes, by your kids. So once that is established and what is expected is clear, then there's going to be times, because kids need discipline. We all need discipline. We need to know the difference between right and wrong. And as parents, they depend upon us. Now, as we send them off to school, they start depending upon teachers and coaches and stuff. But for those first several years, they depend upon us, not just for their food and their survival, but they depend upon us to teach them that right from wrong. So discipline, is something that, I've gone to a lot of conferences and read a lot of books, and they all kind of, to some degree contradict themselves. But, for us, we believed in spanking, and it's something that we utilized. I know that that's not always popular, but for us, it worked. My kids are, thriving and very successful today, but it's something that we use with spanking. I'd like to say that I never ever lost my temper and probably spanked when I shouldn't have, or used words that I shouldn't have that really damaged them. But I'm human, and I've done that. But it goes back to what I just said, because I know I loved them. I got benefit of the doubt, and I got some grace.
Kirk talked about spanking, and my dad recalled spanking me and my younger brother, Tyler.
Well, we did spank you, but we also did, the timeout. We did try to take things away from you. Do you remember the toy monster?
No, I don't.
The toy monster would take things away if you left them out. And I remember one time you had left so many things out that you hardly had anything left. And we had it hid out in the garage. And so you try everything. Some kids are motivated. I think some kids would have been motivated by that. And, I'll get my things so that toy monster doesn't get it. But you didn't seem to care. Maybe you just had too much stuff. I don't know.
Did you spank Tyler too?
Yeah, probably less.
Yeah.
I think as you get older, you think maybe that's not as important or not as valuable as it is. You just have to make sure that you always do it for a concern about the child rather than because you're angry. That's where I've seen it be so damaging with families, and when the parent gets angry, and that's why they're spanking rather than trying to deter negative behavior.
And the funny thing is, my wife, Jessica, she never needed to be spanked.
Jessica, you would look crossways at her and she would, start to pout or cry or something. So it never even took a stern voice with her.
I learned 2 things from the dads in my life today. The first thing is you need some sort of plan. You need a way to help make decisions. It can be a parenting framework like Love and Logic, or simply family goals that you aim for and evaluate every year. The second thing I learned was you need to set expectations with yourself and with your family. As Aaron said, sometimes babies are just going to cry, and you need to expect that. Kirk, though, is quick to point out you need family non-negotiables so you can set expectations within the family. I don't want you to miss out on the next episode of the 4U Leaders podcast. I turn to the dads again to learn about nature versus nurture, their biggest piece of advice, and if they see themselves in their kids.
If I had known then what it's like to be a father now, I wonder if it would have altered my decisions, because now, knowing what I've been through and knowing some of the things I've done, I'm like, shoot, man, I hope my kid doesn't go through those same things. Let it have ended with me. Let him not make those same dumb things.
All that and a lot more on the next 4U Leaders podcast. What do you think of the podcast so far? Do you like how long they are? What about our guest? Go to 4uleaders.com. Once again, that's 4uleaders.com, and let us know what you think.